What's up, YouTube? It's FitzBro, and this is your civilization overview for the Delhi Sultanate. Now, you know that I've been playing a lot of this civilization, and that I have several guides already available on the channel, but I did want to take a moment to go into a single-player game, build every single unit, every single building, and go through it from top to bottom, just in case you're getting started with the civilization, or if there's something you've missed. And I'll tell you, even going through this, I learned something new. So highly recommend sticking around. So let's take a look here at our beautiful Sim City. You see our tower war elephant walking around, having a great time. He's got the crossbow upgrade, so he's got crossbows on his back. But let's go through all of these buildings, and we will start with the center of everyone's city, the town center. Nothing unique here. It's just as typical stuff as usual. Villager scout and textile upgrade for your villager defense. Now, one unique thing for the Delhi Sultanate is there is an upgrade available at your keep right here, which allows you to use the keeps as village fortresses, and it makes it so this this castle can then train villagers. So if I get this research, I am then able to not only train villagers, but it will also support population capacity, and you could research that loom in case some reason you didn't have it yet. So pretty cool little unique feature about Delhi, and there's a lot of little unique things you're going to learn as we go through the Civ. Let's go through some of the basics. One of the biggest concepts for the Delhi is that all of their technologies are free of charge. If we look here at our blacksmith, you'll see I can get any of these technologies for free, but there's a catch. They take a long time to research. You see that this would take 5 minutes. We look at some of these advanced techs here. These would take 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and that's a long time. As soon as you hit those next ages, you want those techs to be coming in pretty quickly so you can get the edge on your opponent. So though these technologies are free, the way Delhi gets around it is you are able to garrison scholars, but we know these typically as monks from other civilizations. You can garrison these scholars inside of your mosque, and it will speed up the percentage rate of which these texts are researched. Now, it's diminishing returns. Obviously, you're going to get the most value out of the first one you put in. Each one is taking a percentage off, but it is in your interest to add additional mosques over time. You know, mid to late game, I'll go 2, maybe even 3 mosques. And there's also a way you can do this at your Madrasa, which is essentially the university for the Delhi Sultanate. So let me demonstrate this right now. Now, your first mosque you build actually starts with 1 scholar in it right out of the beginning of the game. So this thing costs 100 wood to build right here in the first age. And it tells you here, the research rate of buildings that influence the mosque or Madrasa is increased by 12.5% for each garrison scholar. So right now I put this in here, and now instead of these texts taking 5 minutes, you can see it already has shaved off a significant amount of time, because that first scholar, you get the most reward. If I put 2 in there, you'll see it go down even further. Right now it's 4 minutes and 5 seconds. We'll put 2 scholars in there, and quickly that shaves off a lot of time. So that's one way you could do it. You can also garrison your scholars inside of the Madrasa. Now, I tested this to see if it was any additional boost, because you can actually fit up to 20 scholars in here, and it is the exact same benefit as if you had just multiple mosques. So I don't see a huge need to actually put them in the Madrasa, but for some reason you don't want to build additional mosques, you can do this. So you can see it's back to 5 minutes. I'll put 1 in here, and you'll see it shaves off the same amount of time. I can just put a bunch in here, and you can really make these research come extremely quickly, which is great late game. And so that's a little bit how that the research works for Delhi. I'll show you one more thing. I built a little, let's say, forward base. Now, you don't typically put your blacksmith on your forward base, but say you had a barracks or something out here. You can see this currently is not receiving any boost. See, 5 minutes, I have nothing garrisoned. Now, when you're building these mosques, you see that ring, that kind of yellow aura? That is the influence. So anything connected to this will be receiving the boost from that research rate. So these right here, these military buildings would be receiving a research boost if I had units garrisoned here. If you look out here mid-map, you can see there's a 1 mosque I've built out here, but this blacksmith does not have any benefit. So let's see how it behaves. So I am going to garrison a bunch of scholars in here, which should speed up the time, right? We know they take 5 minutes. And if you look at this blacksmith that's built all on its own, receives no upgrade. If we look at the blacksmith that's here on the grid, receives a 1 minute, 9 second, big upgrade. But how will this one behave? Let's take a look. The same time. And the reason why is there is Mosque Wi-Fi. This mosque has got the network set up via satellite and is talking back to these mosques back home and knows that their scholars at garrison. So this is one way you can get around getting this research boost up out in the field. You can also get some unique technologies, which we'll go over a little bit later at the House of Learning, which allows your mosque to heal units. So the mosque is going to be an integral part to your technology. They are a technology-focused civilization. Okay, let's get back into the buildings and units. So economic buildings, we have the town center. The keep or castle could kind of be an economic building, right? If you get that upgrade. We've got our mosque. Let's get the upgrades that you could get here at the mosque. You can get zeal, and this is unique. It allows units to be healed by scholar. The units that are healed by scholars gain plus 50% attack speed for 3 seconds. So it's very common to have your scholars in with your standard army because they're going to be offering buffs. They're going to be healing. So every time they heal, they'll be given that buff. Now, these are the same from other civilizations. You can boost the income of your relics, which you're able to get quite quickly if you get this upgrade because it makes your scholars essentially sprint across the field. It is crazy. I'm going to get this tech just so I can show you how fast it is. You get increase the health, increase the healing. Now, here are the unique ones, which are really, really cool. This is one of the first ones I always recommend getting. Sanctity. It makes it so that you can capture a sacred site as early as the Dark Age if somehow you have this researched by then. Now, it's going to take a lot longer if you don't have scholars inside of here. You can see it takes 5 minutes. But if I get Sanctity, I can then take the sacred sites in the Dark Age, or I usually am doing it in the Feudal Age. Every other civilization cannot do this until the Castle Age. Now, it's good because not only is it a win condition to hold these sacred sites, but you will get plus 200 gold. You have additional gold than other civilizations, plus 200 gold per each sacred site held. So on a map like this, 2-4, this would be 600 gold per minute. So that is very significant. You could throw down a market and you could trade that gold. It's a really, really nice feature for the civilization. So I recommend get the Sanctity early on. Another really cool, unique ability is the efficient production. And you want to use this to put your scholars inside of military buildings and increase the speed by 100%. So what does that mean? While it would typically cost me 16 seconds to train this man at arms, if I had the scholar garrisoned inside of this barracks, I'm not going to walk him across right now, but, oh, I don't have it researched yet. It would go down to 8 seconds. So this basically makes this one barracks act as 2 barracks. So this would be the equivalence of 4 barracks, 4 archery ranges if I had scholars garrisoned inside here. And what I'll often do is I will jump around. I'll move my units into different buildings, ungarrison my scholars depending on the units I'm trying to make at the time, so I don't want to have scholars in every single building. It also makes it so you can easily, have one of each building early on, even early on, and almost as like you could shift your focus depending on what your scouting is bringing in. So a very cool tech. This might even be worth getting first if you don't think you're going to be going for the sacred sites. Okay, so there's the mosque and a lot of its unique upgrades. The blacksmith has all the standard ones. I've already gotten siege engineering, but a unique one they have is the forced march. Now, I made an entire video dedicated to this, but basically this makes it so that your units get an ability to move 100% faster for 10 seconds. Now, this is for infantry. It will be canceled if you attack, or if you even right-click on an enemy unit, it will cancel it. So you want to click past them while you have this ability active, and it'll cool down. I'll get this research so I could show you what that looks like there. We'll even train up a few more scholars in there to speed up the time. Okay, so the Madrasa is the exact same as the university for other civilizations, with the exception of being able to garrison units, scholars inside it. It also does have a large aura. I'll show you what a new one looks like. So if you maybe need that aura later on, or perhaps out in the field to connect your forward base, it could be an option that you can use. Right here is our standard market. No additional upgrades there. You could trade and sell resources. You see, I do have my traders walking to the natural trade post out on the map. They will be bringing back gold. The further distance, the more gold that they will bring back. You can see 10 gold here. This isn't very far. Okay, let's continue with our economic buildings. We have our mining camp, our mill, and our lumber camp has all the same upgrades that all the other civilization have. And of course, these are all going to be free for you to research. Let's look at the landmarks. Now, we could go probably entire videos into our landmarks, and I do have an age-up guide for the Delhi Sultanate, but I built the 3 landmarks that I recommend using. In age 2, you're going to age up with the Dome of Faith. It allows you to produce your scholars at half the cost. So instead of costing 150 gold, these things cost 75 gold, and you can allow your Mosque to keep researching. So, highly recommend going up the Dome of Faith. In age 3, you need to go up with the House of Learning. It gives you these these additional technologies that are otherwise not available to the civilization. Now, the other option is the Compounded Defender, which will allow your infantry to build stone walls, but you're going to be missing out on these techs. Okay, there is a workaround around that. Check out one of my previous Delhi videos on the playlist. So the texts that are available at the House of Learning, in the order that I usually get them in, I usually get Honed Blades first. This will increase the melee damage of man-at-arms and knights by 3. This is really big, especially early on in the 3rd age. It really will give your men-at-arms a nice boost, and if you've paired them with that sprinting ability that I've already researched, it'll make your man-at-arms very powerful. After that, I typically like to get Reinforced Foundations, which allows my houses and town centers to hold more population. If you're making elephants, they're very population intensive, so it's nice to not have to spend that wood on houses. And you can actually have very few villagers on wood later on if you're not just straight making archers. You're able to get Tranquil Venue, which will allow it so a mosque will heal nearby friendly units every second. So you can build a forward mosque out here by your forward base and keep your army around it, and they will heal up your units if you have this ability. There's lookout towers, increase the sight range of outposts by 50%. Down here we have Hardy Rations, increase the carrying capacity of villagers by +5. So a lot of really nice, unique techs. You don't want to miss those. I think I skipped over somewhere the line of sight of the scholars, but there we go. Line of sight by 100% of scholars, the all-seeing eye. That's a unique tech for the scholar. Okay, you can see we just reached population capacity, and part of the reason why is the last landmark I recommend building is the Palace of the Sultan. Now, the Palace of the Sultan will generate tower elephants every so many seconds here. So you see it's currently just started production on a new one. Now, this takes a long time. You can boost the speed, of course, by putting up to 4 scholars inside of this building. So now it's taking 1 minute and 12 seconds left, compared to if I eject them, 2 minutes there. So a great way to get a lot of tower elephants. And you got to think these tower elephants, these cost 600 gold and 400 food. This is a lot of value. Your alternative option is the Palace of the Czar, which will generate food depending on how many techs you have researched. But general food's easier to get late game. This 600 gold, a little bit harder. So this is the one I typically recommend go with. But if I know my enemy is counting elephants, I may go with the other landmark. So those are our landmarks. Let's take a look over at our military buildings up here. So I've built all of the military buildings you can use. So we have our barracks, our archery range, our stable, and our siege workshop, same as every other civilization. In your barracks, you've got access to the spearmen as of the Dark Age, followed by the the man-at-arms when you reach the Castle Age. They aren't available till the Castle Age and are going to be strong if you get that sprinting ability and those honed blades. Look at the archery range. We have our regular archer, our crossbow, hand cannoneer, and then we have our unique units, the Tower War Elephant. We all love the elephants, which is an elephant with a archer on the back, or if you've upgraded, a crossbowman on the back. And then at the stable, we've got our horseman, our knight, our scout, and then we have the war elephant. Now, let me show you what these units look like. I know you're dying to see some elephants. So looking over here, check out, we've trained every single unit that you can make here. So these are the tower elephants. These are the ones that are made out of the archery range. You can see I've upgraded them to crossbows. So the elephant will actually melee if it gets within distance. And on top of it, the archer will constantly be auto-targeting units. Even while it's moving, these archers will be shooting. For this reason, this is typically the better elephant to have, because your war elephants that are trained out of the stable, these guys are only going to attack when they get within range of the opponent. I'll slowly go over all of the stats. Now, I haven't gotten research every single stat of every single unit because I wanted to demonstrate where you can research them, but it gives you a general idea of the statistics of these different units. So, another thing to note is these elephants take up a lot of pop space. So if we look here, they take a total of 3 population. So you've got to keep in mind, you still need to have room in your army, whether it's for different siege units, some other infantry units. And also one thing to note are these elephants are able to attack walls. Where typically only stone walls, where typically only siege units were able to attack stone walls. So there's the base stats there. I've gotten a few upgrades for these. But gives you kind of an idea of what they have. Let's look at these other units. Okay, so looking at the barracks, you have your access to the man-at-arms. I've gotten some upgrades here. We have not got the honed blades yet, which would give this additional attack. And then our spearmen, of course, per usual. Now, let me show you this sprint ability. Well, check this out. So this is how fast this guy typically would use. I'll have one moving a little bit after him. So this will last for 10 seconds. Okay, you ready? There we go. Look at him go. Zoom! Turbo mode activated. He hits the NOS, and he can get into the battle very, very quickly. If you look at the speed it actually gets, it goes up to 2.25 tiles per second, where the base stat is usually 1.12. Now let's compare that to the cavalry, the horsemen, which is the one of the faster units in the game. 1.88 tiles. These can outrun them if you have that ability activated. So making it one of the, I think, the fastest military unit you can have, with the exception of colors. We know probably those Mongol flying around buildings. Okay, so there's the base stats of those units. Out of the stable, we also have the Lancer. There's some stats for it. I have gotten a few upgrades. We were comparing the speed just a moment ago. And then our Horsemen. Everyone's got access to the Horsemen. We know the typical uses of these. And now looking at the archery range, there's our standard archer. And you can see all of these foot infantry all have this forced march ability, since I've researched it, that they are able to use. There's our hand cannoneer. Get a look at those stats there. And lastly, our crossbowmen. These are all trained out of their archery range. So one thing I like about them is, since you can make the elephants, it gives your archery range a lot more power than other civilizations, because you could be, making a combination of these units, or you could pop a whole tower elephant out. Now, these are going to be better for countering infantry. Obviously, these are going to be countered, since they are archer type units, by knights or spearmen. Actually do very well against these, while these war elephants will do really well against knights. They're great at countering other cavalry, and are going to be great if your enemy is massing a lot of knights. These are what you want. But in general, tower elephants is going to be your better option. Looking at our backline, we've got our standard counterweight trebuchet, the classic. We all know it. We have our mangonel. We've got our springald, and they do have access to bombard. Do note, Delhi does not have access to culverins. And with going up against civilizations that have some significant upgrades to their springalds, you're going to struggle in the head-on-head springald warfare, especially without a culverin. So I would advise being careful about going too late into the game against opponents. Though you do have these free techs, if the enemy is able to get their massed army of springalds are great at countering elephants. Crossbows are great at countering elephants, so are hand cannoneers. So you're going to struggle taking out those enemy springalds if they get them in mass. Those are all the units. Check out some of the other videos if you want to see them in action or learn a little bit more about them. But that sprint ability and those honed blades for your man-at-arms and knights, oh man, I love it. Okay, so we've looked at all of these military buildings. Here at the Siege Workshop, you can see we do have all these Tier 2 upgrades you can get. Typical stuff that every other civilization has. I do want to show you one little bug I did notice, and now you can get a demonstration of how fast these scholars sprint once you have that ability. I mean, doesn't look like really fast after looking at that man-at-arms sprint, but this is very fast for a scholar, and you can run out, get the sacred sites, go out, easily grab the relics, run in with a relic, and convert to the enemy army. So if you have a scholar garrisoned inside of your Siege Workshop, oh, I didn't get the tech. I'm not gonna do it. But what I was going to show you is, you have them researched here. It actually will block this slot right here with the ungarrison button, and you might not even know this is here. So make sure if you've got scholars garrisoned when you reach the final age, you ungarrison this so you're able to get this researched. Okay, we've covered that. There's our blacksmith. We've covered the mosque Wi-Fi. A few other buildings which you should be familiar with. We've got our stone walls that can be built. We've got our defensive towers that can be built along all those walls by your villagers. You've got your outposts, which have been upgraded. I've got one with the cannon emplacement, one with the springald emplacement, and one with the arrow slits. Looking at the castle, we've talked about the village fortress being a unique tech. You got slow burning defenses, increases the armor of your stone walls, keeps an outpost by +10. And then we know the boiling oil for our keeps. An ability we have not talked about, which is very important, is infantry for the Delhi Sultanate are able to build walls. No other civilization can build walls with infantry. So right off from either the first age, you can start doing this, or in the second age, whenever it's fitting. A great thing to do is take your infantry, go out to the sacred sites, and wall them in while your scholars are capturing them in maybe the dark or feudal ages. And you have to be careful with the placement around some of these. I mean, that's a whole thing in itself. But this is a cool way that you can defend these. You can just keep walling chokes on the map. It's very nice. Now, if you go up with the compound defender, it does allow you to build stone walls with your infantry. There is currently a bug with this, which I'm assuming will be fixed, but if your villager places a stone wall and then you have your infantry build a palisade wall next to it, they will finish this palisade wall and then jump on to building the stone wall because they think they've got the compound of the defender, even though they do not. So a very cool ability for the Delhi Sultanate. And with that, I think we have covered all the units, the buildings, and the techs. We've gone over all of these. We've gone over the Palace of the Sultanate. Okay, we've got all of our typical Madrasa upgrades, our university techs. Lastly, let's finish off this wonder so you can see this beautiful Palace of the Agra. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this civilization overview for the Delhi Sultanate. I've been really enjoying playing this civ, and I know a lot of you guys like to see these elephants out on the battlefield. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the civilization. If you've got any questions that maybe I didn't cover, or if I missed something, make sure you share that. I also have a place in the Discord where you can strategize about the Delhi Sultanate, and I highly encourage you to join that conversation. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.